Hey team, welcome back. We're in game 1 with Death and Taxes against Caramel 919. And this is a pretty great opener. We have a turn 1 Vial, which is probably just the best play for any Vial deck. We have a creature in Mother Runes to put off it straight away. I think if anything, I'd like an extra utility land instead of a third plains, but I'm going to keep this. It's a little bit soft to something unfair, but really good against any sort of fair mid-range deck. And I'm pretty happy to see how that goes because I am obviously pretty keen to see how some of these new cards go. Ragavan, okay. Huh. I wonder if this changes how I want to play out this game. I'm not too scared of Ragavan as a threat because it is an X1, so I do have a lot of things to trade for it. So I'm not too scared if the swords here gets dazed. I think I'd rather the Vial not get hit than the sword to get hit. So this is actually a pretty tough one. I do like Vial because it allows me to just start really going at my strategy of trying to get creatures on the board. Obviously that's a little bit better when I do have something to do with my mana as well, like a Rishon Import, but if I lose the swords to a daze or a force, I don't think I'm in that bad of a position. So I'm pretty happy to play the swords here. I could play around Spell Pierce by doing it now. I could play around Force Negation by doing it later. I could also play around Brainstorm into Force, so actually I'm just going to Swords here. They're going to Force. Okay. Other play was lead on Mum, but I think this is going to be okay. They have a Caracas. Interesting. They hit a Stoneforge Mystic. That's pretty good. I'm going to assume they're not playing any sort of artifacts, so it's probably better just to hold up mana here for them. Here, I like playing the Vial first. Probably playing the Mum as well. I think I'm okay with that. Interesting, so they have Swords to Plowshares as well in a Ragavan deck. We have Skyclave next turn as well to deal with it, which isn't playing around days, but I think that's okay. Prismatic Ending's really strong. Two cards left for my opponent. Pretty happy just to slam the Skyclave here. Guess it depends on what we draw as well. Two cards left for my opponent. I have been playing around days to some extent this game, so I probably just want to keep going with that. And seeing our mana, I probably don't mind just Stoneforge into Batterskull rather than the other equipment, just because it's also in a reasonable place to be cast. Opponent might be brainstorming here in response to Stoneforge. Okay. Possibly trying to find a Force of Will or a blue card in Force. If you're tapping out, that's really the only card you're looking for if you're going to respond with a Brainstorm. Okay, interesting. They will have Ragavan here with Caracas, which is pretty tough. Interesting. They could prelate if they really wanted to, but I think that's pretty bad for them if they do want to do that. Delve is actually fine. They're up to 0 cards. So they could name one here to turn off Swords to Plowshares, which I've seen one of, and they've only seen one Vial as well. But it does turn off a lot of their stuff, so We'll see what they name. Because it is both sides, so whatever they name, they can't cast either. So I wonder if they name something like 2 would turn off expressive iteration. They named 3. Okay. Well, there's the Batterskull naturally. I think here I'm happy just to Skyclave the Delver, but seeing that the Ragavan is now turned off by the Caracas, I do want to take the Flyer out because we do have Batterskull coming down as well, but there might be a situation where they can mitigate Batterskull's ability to gain life by blocking with a Ragavan and returning it every turn, and then maybe dashing back. I think this card's just too good because it does put them ahead a bit, so I think it is just taking out the Ragavan here. Especially if they start really digging for cards, it can be pretty problematic. No flip. Most likely means it's obviously a land or a creature, so it's not too bad. I'm gonna let this slide. Well, pretty happy to see if they didn't flip the Delver, so it's not a Daze or Force, like a Force negation. So I'm trying to think if I have to be worried of anything at instant speed with like Flash, but I think here I do have just a free attack with the Skyclave. Bolt's gonna be fine. Recruiter. Okay. Recruiter probably just getting Flicker Wisp, so I might just attack with both first. But now that we know about Bolt, I might not go for Flicker Wisp here. I guess Skyclave is pretty strong. Just to take out the Delver in the air. I think that's probably just best. In a really nice position. Not the greatest to draw 6 planes as our mana base, but to just have really consistent mana is quite nice there, especially against Delver that's most likely playing Wasteland. It's really nice to get to 6 lands that aren't wasteful. It doesn't happen much, so pretty happy. I'm sure there's little things there. It's always tough with new cards and really assessing how powerful they are. Maybe there was a turn 1 play of just Mother of Runes to try to get rid of Ragavan and let that get forced, but we'll see how this plays out. Playing Caracas is really interesting. This is probably a matchup where I like the sort of Fire and Ice over this, which is really good, but I think the life gain from Batterskull is just a little bit better in racing. It allows us to pretty much swing 8 points of damage. So I'm actually going to take out the Keldra. I'm going to take out the 2 Revokers. I'm going to bring in 2 Parts. I don't mind the extra Solitude, but I probably don't need it. Judgment's also interesting. I like the Spirits, I like the Stoneforge, I like the Thalias, Recruiters, Flicker. I could drop a Recruiter if I really wanted to. It's not really a game where I want to grind and get to that stage, so it's really a case of what's better. I actually don't mind Judgment, but I probably don't need it. I'm gonna keep in the Recruiter and just see if maybe these early spells can make the game go long, so that a second Recruiter is actually quite good. In the blind, I think I would be happy to keep this. Turn 1 Vial, a Wasteland turn 2, and then Flicker Wisp for any ETB creatures we draw, or maybe have some application on the board, but I think against Delver, I really want to make sure I have some sort of removal in my opening hand, especially when I've brought in 2 Part 2 Exiles, so I'm going to mulligan this. This is... Okay. We'll keep this, definitely. What do I want to bottom? I kind of want to keep double swords, just in case the first one gets countered. I do want the Mum and the Vial. I think it's just the Stoneforge, but the issue is that Stoneforge here is my only threat. It's my way to really start winning the game. And with Mum, it's just so good as well to be able to protect Stoneforge Mystic. I can only assume my opponent's brought in something like a Braid for Batterskull or Jide or whatever they think Stoneforge is going to get, but if they have a Braid in hand, I think the Vial's going to be going pretty early on, so... I don't want to drop a land, because I do want to play around Days as early as turn 2. I actually am just going to drop the Stoneforge and keep a pretty nice low curve. I think just the ability to draw into threats early on is pretty good for us, so we have some time to find those. And a Spirit's pretty good. Let's go with Vial. Opponent also went to 6. No flip. It's pretty good for us. They also have Prismatic Ending, which is a nice answer for Aether Vial. Null Rod. Okay. Pretty happy just to play Port, play Mum. Because getting Mum online's really nice, especially with Flicker Wisp here. It means that this Null Rod can be flickered out, and then the Spirit can be put in as early as next turn if we draw a land that's a white source. If my opponent doesn't remove the Mum here pre-combat, then I'm not going to trade with Mother of Runes, because they obviously don't have removal for it. I don't think my opponent would put themselves in a position where I get to trade with Mum. And especially since we have 2 swords in hand, I'm more than happy for this. Okay, so they can play the Days this turn, but that's not that great anyway. Cool. We'll tick this up. Wasteland. Okay. Can take my opponent off white, which is interesting. Can also just port my opponent. So let's go with swords first. Wasteland pass. This also allows me to draw a white source next turn and play Flicker Wisp around Days, which is pretty nice. Because I think for now I'll just keep this Vial on too. So port here, kind of acting like Wasteland because it takes my opponent off that creature, but Ragavan kicked is pretty good. They hit a Plains. This will be a no. Another port. That's not the worst, because now we get to take them off the Tundra and then just port them on a Volk. There's a world where I could just play the Spirit and Swords, but I kind of want to get to a position where it's gonna be Flicker Wisp the Null Rod. Pretty funny that with Null Rod they can't actually activate the treasures. It's probably one of the first times that there has been that sort of Nobo within Delver with a card like Null Rod. Alright, this will be a no. We'll draw a white source. Close-ish. I don't mind playing Recruiter here, because it is just a 1/1 as well that could trade with a Ragavan if they decide to play it. But what am I going to get? That's the big question. I don't mind Solitude. could also get an apparition just to deal with the Null Rod. I like that. I think in like a real tournament, I would just be 6ing here, or not 6ing here, to act like we do have Solitude in our hand, but for now that's not going to occur. Ponder's okay. Let's see what they do with a Ponder. Love to see a shuffle. They have 2 cards and Ragavan currently. Chose to not shuffle. Okay. This is a no. That's a Wasteland. Interesting. Pretty happy to hold Wasteland up for now. Just to play Swords around Days if needed. And then end step I can always Wasteland if they try to get another white source or something else. Still keep this at 2. Alright. Guess that's how it goes. Now I'm pretty happy to play the Spirit out. And then next time probably just put the Vial to 3 because if we can draw a white source then having these at instant speed is really nice. Gonna go with the Tundra. Mentor, interesting. Well, now I really want a white source. Nice. I have 4 cards left. I think what I'll do is Flick Wisp first. I don't want to play the Skyclave into a counter magic spell. I'd rather get rid of the Null Rod here. Because now that I've got the ability here, the Null Rod I'm not really afraid of if it comes back. Brainstorm here, most likely just to get some value off the Mentor and make a Monk. Now they're gonna daze the Brainstorm as well. Interesting, just to get more triggers. Okay. Opponent really wanting this Mentor to be good. If I really worry about Swords to Plowshares, I should Wasteland here instead of porting. I think I will, just so they can't Swords in response to me tapping it down. The upside of Skyclave there into something else, Blazing Volley is pretty good. Is that I get to remove the Null Rod and the Mentor? This will be always no. Pretty happy to just spirit into tap down white. Free attacks here, that's going to be fine. This goes in the stack. So here I have a few options. I could Recruiter for... I'm going to tap like this, because if the Recruiter doesn't resolve, I want to have Rishton Port open. And there's no double white 2-drops that I want, or anything else that I really want. I think I'm just going to get Stoneforge here. I could be a little bit greedy and go for a Solitude, which is pretty interesting. Mum's pretty nice as well, because it gives my opponent 1 turn to find an answer for it. Thalia is also pretty nice, because it is just a taxing creature that's really good with these ports as well. It might actually just be Thalia. I think Thalia is pretty strong here, especially with First Strike. If they have another Blazing Volley, they have another Blazing Volley. I think Thalia here just really is quite nice, because it really taxes them. Wasteland is fine, that means they can't double spell this turn. Pretty happy to attack with Thalia. Sure. I could have tapped down the white source if I was really scared of that happening, but I think this is okay. Didn't expect the Mentor. Maybe I should have. I guess we sideboarded correctly for a creature-heavy kind of matchup, so can't be too happy. True Name's okay. We do have the Council's Judgment in the sideboard. Okay. If I take this, I get a 9, and the True Name's just a 3-turn clock. I think that's okay. It's really a case of, do I get like another turn 2 block? Like next turn if they have Blazing Volley, then it's obviously a really big issue. I believe Blazing Volley is actually both players' opponent. Okay, no, it's not. From a time consideration, we might just go to game 3 and see what we can do. I do like this, but seeing Swords to Plowshares is also a bit of an issue. Powder Keg's interesting because it gets rid of a lot of tokens, but I don't think that's really where I want to be. I do like Council's Judgment, and I do like the extra Solitude. I'm going to go down on 1 Thalia and 1 Recruiter. Just seeing those Blazing Volleys spooked me a little bit. Pretty good hand, we'll keep this. Pretty stacked. Especially if they don't have a turn 1 prismatic ending, we're looking pretty good. Aether Vial into Swords turn 1 play Wasteland them, or Wasteland would play around Days, then Swords is pretty awesome. Opponent having a good think about their 7. Opponent goes to 6. At least if my opponent doesn't force this and does prismatic ending, they probably have to go for a dual land. So Van's fine. I'm pretty happy to allow them to daze them if they want to daze. Okay. Should have done the Wasteland first here, but I didn't, and that's a huge, yeah, that's just, that was me thinking that I didn't want to Wasteland there, but I kind of did. There is a consensus that I shouldn't have because of our hand being pretty heavy in spells, but luckily we drew the land there for Stoneforge Mystic into Batterskull. Oh. This just really puts pressure on my opponent to have another removal spell and also a land on this draw. Wow. Gonna Wasteland an upkeep. So a little misplay there, but I apologize. But thankfully we get there. That's actually a really interesting one, and if you want to comment below, I'd definitely appreciate it, because after the Vial got countered, we were relying on the Plains and the Wasteland to cast the Stoneforge Mystic, and then another land to get to the Skyclave and Recruiter. But I think just because we were pretty aggressive with the first Wasteland, I'm pretty happy just to continue that sort of strategy, because Delver's going to be a pretty low land count deck, so I think it's okay, because the drawing into that one land for us is just so huge to get Stoneforge online, especially if Mum's online there as well. And maybe that's a different match if we do be a little bit more conservative with like Stoneforge Mystic, but pretty happy to get there. I mean, Wasteland can just win games sometimes, so I think in that game sequencing was pretty non-optimal, but I'll take the win and we'll see how this goes. So we'll see you in game 2. Thanks.